50 years ago, a Texas chicken farmer stuffed a Detroit V8 into a small British sports car and changed the world. We've come to GingerMan Raceway in Michigan today to find out just what that means. We've brought a handful of modern cars that are a lot like this thing, cars that take big balls and a steady right foot to go fast in. And we're going to find out what they're like to drive and whether or not the concept of a big, hairy sports car is relevant for today's world. Let's go take a look. A couple of decades ago, Chrysler President Bob Lutz called up Carroll Shelby and asked him to help make a modern Cobra. The car that resulted was the Dodge Viper, and this is one of the last ones built. It's a 2010 Roadster, makes 600 horsepower out of an 8.4-liter V10, and when it was new, it cost around $101,000. Now, Dodge doesn't make the Viper anymore. There's a new one on the way, coming in a couple of months. But we brought this here because, like the Cobra, it's got a lot of motor, it's rear-wheel drive, it's loud and obnoxious, and the man himself had a hand in it. Now this is currently one of the hairiest things that Europe builds. This is a 2012 Mercedes C63 Black Series Coupe. The motor under the hood is a 6.2-liter, 510 horsepower naturally aspirated V8. It's basically the same motor, detuned a little, that's in the SLS supercar. So, it's a small car with a supercar's engine under the hood, two-wheel drive, fat fenders, and relatively stiff suspension. But what ties it to the Cobra is the personality. It's loud, it's obnoxious, it's raw, and it begs you to beat on it. It works better when you beat on it. But what if you don't have $125,000? That's where you end up with this. This is a 2013 Ford Shelby Mustang GT500. It's got a supercharged 5.8-liter V8 that makes 662 horsepower. That's 150 horsepower more than the Mercedes, but it costs around half as much. It costs $55,000. But what's interesting about this thing is that just like the Mercedes, just like the Viper, and just like the Cobra, it's got an awful lot of power, it makes an awful lot of noise, and it goes really, really quickly if you know what you're doing. But there's more that ties this to the Cobra than just the Shelby badge on the back. And to figure out what that is, we have to take a closer look at the original.
It's all you.
So this is Colin Comer. This is his car. He also essentially wrote the book on Shelby Cobras. He's gonna help me with this.
Oh, this might be a challenge.
That chicken farmer I mentioned was obviously Carroll Shelby. He built the Cobra by stuffing a Ford V8 into an AC Ace, and what resulted made the car world cram its pants. Colin's car is the real thing. It's a 1965 narrow hip 427, one of just 260 street cars made.
I was looking at it, the sticker on this thing when it was new was what, like $7 grand?
Yeah.
This was one of the fastest cars in the world at the time. That's like buying a Ferrari 458 for the price of a Mercedes E-Class now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane that you could buy this much car for that little money. It's just meaty and enormous. It feels the controls, with the exception of the shifter and the clutch. It's just really light and delicate.
It's a little British sports car.
Yeah, with an enormous motor in it.
Yep.
What was it like the first time you drove one of these?
Terrifying.
So this thing,
Yeah.
662 horsepower. You think you can handle this?
Oh boy, I hope so.
Oh no. Let's go.
This is a Shelby.
Why? What did Carroll like about cars like this? You knew the guy.
Yeah.
What did he like
Power.
about stuff like
Listen
this?
to that.
How's it feel?
It's buttoned down. This is a 55,000-hour Mustang. It's 200 miles an hour. I mean, come on. What's there not to like about the feel? It pushes a little bit, but I'm sure they did that to keep people that don't have opposing thumbs safe. You know, you can't give John Q. Public 662 horsepower and expect him not to kill himself.
They're putting supercar power and numbers into, you know, what's basically in some forms a secretary's car. This is a big hammer. This is what you chew up continents with, you know?
The Ford's thing is overkill. What do you do with 662 horsepower and a stick axle? Well, you turn traction off, dump the thing into a corner, and arm wrestle it for the right to run the room. Smooth is fast here, but it's just not as much fun. So you argue with it, and you come out laughing.
No, I'm driving this one.
Oh, fine. Red seatbelts, cute.
Red seat belts.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we've got here is Europe's answer to the big, weird, hairy car, right?
Right.
Pulls pretty well.
What a sound.
Sounds great. You can hear it. There's little crackles on it.
Gives a nice blip.
Pops and burbles. So what do you like? You like
Everything.
It? Why?
It's for a car that weighs this much. This thing's really dialed in. It's very race car-ish.
Yeah, and for me it's interesting because it feels like a traditional American muscle car. You know, there's something like medieval and castle-y and, you know, guys with swords and big steins of beer about.
I don't care about swords and big steins of beer, but that engine sound.
Yeah,
is something else.
It is loud. There's an awful lot of road noise. It's great. I mean, it's all the right noises. It's funny. This almost reminds me more of the Cobra in terms of big car feeling small personality than the Shelby does. You ever feel like you're towing a big mass behind you that you do in the Shelby?
How many multiples of the Shelby price is this car? Because this car is pretty badass.
This is roughly twice what the Shelby costs.
Would you believe it's worth it? Mercedes drives like a NASCAR stalker that snorted a bunch of cocaine and crashed a fancy tea party. No car this heavy should turn like this or put its power down so well. It drives the way you think 60s muscle cars do when you're 5.
The big difference for me is that's always got me about these things is that this is a much more intimidating car to drive, right?
Right.
That big long hood stretching out in front of you. Nobody quite fits it. You always feel like you're crammed into the thing. I mean,
it's bigger than the Cobra on the exterior, and it feels smaller on the inside.
From the very start, from the days when Bob Lutz and Shelby were involved, you know, when the project was still just a skunkworks thing, they wanted it to scare women and children.
Well, I would say they succeeded. They're not known as a friendly car. They are a driver's car.
Right. I like it, and it's funny. I've never been a Viper guy. I've never been the kind of guy who wants to own one or, you know, holds one up as the best car ever built. But I like knowing that it exists. I like that somewhere someone builds something like this.
God bless America. I love the fact that we can still make stuff like this because the whole Cobra era came and went. You know, government stepped in, we had emissions regulations, safety regulations, and it took them a while, but they figured out how to make stuff like this again.
Yeah.
These people need to enjoy this stuff while it lasts because they're going to figure out how to stop it again. This is coming to a close, I have a feeling. And you got to love it.
Now, the Viper is a lot like the Cobra. You don't so much drive it as poke it with a sharp stick and channel the fury when you piss it off. That feeling was put there on purpose, less so with the C63 and the Mustang, though those cars still have it. And that dance, that back and forth risk, is why we love these things. Carroll Shelby died this year, but he knew something. The man has to control the car, not the other way around.
Ultimately, we need these cars. Machines like this, engaging, direct, involving, non-nannied sports cars are what makes driving enjoyable. They're why people got into this in the first place, why the first gas-powered car ever turned a wheel. And at the end of the day, you have to love that. You have to appreciate you have to appreciate the... You know how this ends.